Hello viewers, and welcome to this list of 10 largely forgotten arcade games that are still worth playing today, and all of which you can find on the PlayStation and the Switch at the very least, along with the numerous emulation possibilities on the PC of course. Our first game takes us back to 1994, and it owes more than a nod to metallic invertebrates. The first Gunforce game was a decent Contra-style run and gunner, but this sequel goes all in to give fans one of the very best arcade platform shooters you can play. From the off, you're dual-wielding assault rifles on a runaway train, then you're in a mech or a tank or a hover gunship before wheeling down a hill on a motorbike or wearing a Gundam suit, then flame-grilling aliens and taking on massive bosses. It all just keeps coming and it's brilliant. The pixel art is fantastic throughout, reminiscent of SNK's best work, and the Irem Collection Volume 2, which is how I was playing the game, features a strong variety of options to tailor the display to your liking. True to the source code, there is some slowdown as things get really hectic on screen, but if anything, it can be quite helpful and it doesn't detract from the overall experience. Gunforce 2 is, of course, a short game. You can blast through all 5 levels in just 30 to 40 minutes, but the moment-to-moment gameplay is so strong and bombastic that this is one you'll be playing over and over again when you need that shooter fix. Most arcade sports games from the 80s and 90s just don't cut it these days, with a poor frame rate, janky controls and impossible AI that simply won't let you win. But somehow Street Hoop, also known as Street Slam in certain territories, has avoided those pitfalls across more than 30 years, and it's an enjoyably uncomplicated pleasure, especially with 2 players. You can pass, shoot, steal and jump, and that's about it, but there are a load of different contextual dunk animations, including an over-the-top special shot you build up to, and everything feels great to pull off. The AI also does a great job of selecting the correct player for you when you haven't got the ball. You really can intercept shots with the right timing and turn the ball over with a careful swipe. It's not just a case of whoever scores first wins or the AI dominating you if you're playing solo. You can also take your time and find the right position for your players, throwing defense-splitting passes at the right moment, or dodging a defender long enough to release a crucial 3-pointer. It makes for some close, tense and really fun matches. Despite a variety of stats for each team, you won't find much difference between them. You're just as likely to progress with Taiwan as you are the USA, so basically pick your favourite colour shirt and get going. I got really addicted to Street Hoop while I was recording some footage to show you, and my partner, who's a netball player, also loved it. Even if you're not a fan of freakishly tall men, or if you think Michael Jordan is just a bloke who makes trainers, please give this a go. Any long-term Bomberman fans will know that the series has really lost its way in recent years. The developers have been trying too hard to add unwanted extra modes and features, and as of the most recent game, our little friend currently finds himself lost in a valley of stone dicks. The original Bomberman games have become very difficult to find in any official capacity, but thanks to the ever-expanding Arcade Archives collection, I can offer you a decent pixel art alternative complete with 4-player local action. The goal in Exvania is exactly what you'd expect. Trap and blow up 3 of your competitors across a number of single-screen stages. But where Bomberman wants you to explode the various blocks and obstacles en route to your enemies, Exvania hands you a chain spear and lets everyone smash everything open for power-ups within seconds. You can also use the weapon to force players into explosions if you time everything right. The pace picks up quickly, especially as you gather and stack speed upgrades along with extra bombs and the power to explode them at further reaches. Adding to the mix as you progress are NPC creatures, including fire-breathing dragons, wizards and sword-wielding skeletons that wander around causing extra havoc. Across 8 different castles, the level design doesn't change dramatically, but each area has its own size and obstacles that keeps the tactics interesting and the rounds competitive. If you mourn the loss of the traditional Bomberman games, Exvania is well worth a look, especially with 4 players. There are a lot of pleasingly chunky beat-em-ups on a Neo Geo, and if you told the 12-year-old me that one day they'd cost just a handful of coins, it would have blown my significantly over-gelled hair clean off. Mutation Nation has that hefty, satisfying final fight feel with impactful hits accompanied with some meaty sound effects, but more than that, it's got bags of weird to add to the entertainment. I'm not entirely sure what the story is here exactly. It'll be the usual arcade gibbering toss, but clearly the world has become overrun by mutants, and it's your job, preferably with a friend, to beat the living piss out of everyone and restore genetic order. Aside from the usual one-button combos, jump kicks and grabs, Mutation Nation allows you to pick up a variety of lettered power-ups, activated by holding down and then releasing a button, and these are perfect for crowd control. You can experiment to find a favourite and swap the powers out anytime you find a new one waiting on the floor. It's a shame that there are only 2 player characters, and you will come up against a lot of familiar enemies across your playtime, but the excellent graphics, locales and the overall pace should keep you happily invested until the end credits, when you feel the need to dish out some arcade pain. Rainbow Islands is possibly the one game on this list that most people have at least heard of or think they've seen. Along with classics like the New Zealand story, it's one of those pure arcade mixes of joy and pain. With 1 or 2 players, you fire rainbows to use as both weapons and stepping stones as you look to ascend 40 levels across 10 distinct islands, with every 4th level culminating with a boss fight. What makes the game is the freedom you have to tackle each level in your own way. You can absolutely pelt it up each stage, farting rainbows left and right as you dodge a variety of enemies, or you can take the methodical approach and go for the highest score, reaching the top ledge with chronic heartburn as you chomp endless fruit, burgers and cake. Along the way you can pick up power-ups to increase the number of arcs in your rainbows or make your character faster, and you'll keep your perks for as long as you avoid a hit. The one and only tune in the entire game may drive you to pick up a chainsaw and run screaming into a shopping centre eventually. There's no way to turn it down in the Arcade Archives version I was playing, but if you can allow yourself to become numb to it or just turn the whole game down, it's highly likely that serious arcade fans will want to plough through to the very end of this brilliantly colourful world. The marketing team at Capcom must have had the week off when it came to addressing the Vampire/Darkstalkers/Night Warriors games. It's a total bugger trying to explain which version of the game you're playing depending on your region and the format you're playing on. The game I'm showing you here is the 3rd entry in whatever the hell the series is called this week, which I've downloaded via the Capcom Arcade's 2nd Stadium, a title that also makes no sense. Please bear in mind that this version doesn't have any online play. You'll need the more recent and more expensive Capcom Fighting Collection if you want to go one-on-one over the internet. Either way, this is one of the best fighters for the more casual players who love their pixel art. Regular viewers will know that I lament the hardcore route one-on-one fighters have taken in recent years, leaving behind a huge base of players who thought Street Fighter 2 Turbo was just fine, thank you. Vampire Savior does have certain depths if you choose to explore them, but mercifully it's also a game that lets you choose your favourite weirdo, Sasquatch in my case, and mash some buttons with a friend on the sofa, giggling like school kids who got served at the off licence. Even solo, playing through the arcade mode with each character, slowly mastering a manageable set of special moves, all of which are explained in-game these days, is a crunchy, fluid joy, and it makes a great alternative to the more serious work required in far more famous fighters. Yes. Of the roughly 40 billion shooters that were released into the arcades, when an arcade was actually a separate building full of full-size cabinets, smoke and at least one man who was asked to stay well away from the local school, the vast majority of them featured planes, spaceships or helicopters. In the Hunt's pixel art sub may seem slower at first, but the gameplay is often just as frantic as anything R-Type will throw at you, and it can be enjoyably tactical across its 6 surprisingly varied stages. You have to watch above you and below you carefully, as well as dodging anything coming in from the front or behind, and more than that, the way that you attack will change once you hit the surface, in order to deal with additional threats in the air, and that's on top of the environmental obstacles. Along the way you'll pick up a variety of power-ups, and it's great to watch ships break apart and sink, explosions and debris scatter and structures fall into the sea. 2 players can almost be too hectic, but I recommend you try it at least once. Otherwise, the excellent graphics, sound and movement make In the Hunt a solid, refreshing change from the usual brand of schmuppery. Warrior Blade is the 3rd game in the Rastan saga, and it was at the time of its release in the early 90s a rare and impressive arcade cabinet, albeit one that never left Japan. The reason everything appears so elongated in the footage I'm showing you here is that the original full-size game came with dual screens, stretching the action much wider than the ubiquitous 4:3 aspect ratio of the time. And note the detail in the graphics. Even for the most advanced cabinets, this kind of muscle definition and smoothness of animation was almost unheard of. The increased screen real estate allows for some impressive set pieces, like racing horses and smacking off other riders as if in some kind of medieval road rash, along with flying dragons side by side, or using a primitive surfboard to hammer through a cave system. There are even some short platforming sections. Your attacks with each of the characters are deceptively varied and context sensitive. The flip side is that some of the levels can look pretty sparse, and the bosses, while many of them look great, are weaker than your mum's Wi-Fi password. Still, that might be a bonus for many. Overall, Warrior Blade is a great choice if you and a friend just want an hour or two carving through willing fodder. The pixel art still looks incredible today, and the way in which you can choose your path forward through several of the levels will help keep new runs relatively fresh. Now, here's your wild card for this list. Saboten Bombers isn't so much a forgotten game as one nobody had heard of in the first place. Riffing on the Bubble Bobble and Snowbros single screen formula, you play as a cactus who's looking after the house when the owners have gone out, killing off insects, fellow plants and plenty of other oddities by lobbing bombs all over the show. What I like about this game is the pace. You're not waiting for any of the creatures to turn into anything with your projectiles and then looking to hit them again. You're blowing the crap out of everything in one go, including yourself if you're not careful. It's an immediately cathartic experience, trying to destroy as many enemies as possible in one go, or forcing an explosive down a boss's throat, and the controls are fast and fluid. The backgrounds do get recycled fairly quickly, but the layouts and a variety of wacky foes help keep things interesting for over 100 levels, if you're up to the challenge. On one of the rare occasions when SNK wasn't working on a Metal Slug sequel, they found time to come up with this bizarre platform beat-em-up. Bouncing forward and backward across two planes, top hunter Roddy and Cathy sees you grabbing a spectacularly weird and characterful cast of enemies with your Mr. Tickle arms and throwing them around the screen. Or you can always get up close and personal with a flurry of attacks. There's even a Street Fighter Dragon Punch and fireballs you can throw. And of course, there are the contractually obliged mech suits. For some, Top Hunter might seem a bit like a B-side for elements SNK couldn't find a way to crowbar into a Metal Slug game, but this is no rush job. The graphics and animation are typically excellent, there's plenty of variety in the enemies, the game works particularly well with two players, and you always want to see what the next stage will throw at you. The final boss does take the piss somewhat, transitioning into all the other bosses you've dealt with up until that point, one after the other, followed by one final form before it finally drops dead. But that's not the hideously expensive proposition it might once have been, with infinite free credits and save states. The more I played Top Hunter, the more I enjoyed it, mixing up my approach and taking the levels in a different order every time I came back to it. If you feel like you've played every run and gunner or scrolling beat 'em up, give this a try for something different. So please tell me, what would make your forgotten arcade top 10? I'd love to hear about your favourite games in the comments below. Please leave me a like and don't forget to ding your notification bell so you won't miss out on any videos in future. I'll be back very soon with a lot more games, new and old. Cheers for now.